Cool, and we are back. Welcome to At the Bar, episode 3 with myself, Alex Parkinson, and my co-presenter, Harry Morris, who's back in the building. How are you, bro? And what have you been doing since we last recorded?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, not too bad. Just recovering from a little bit of man flu, actually. So I had to slow things down a little bit last week, which is all right. It gave me some time to work on my business a little bit, do some new content. So
nice.
If I sound a bit nasally, I apologise. More than the usual amount.
Cool. All right. Well,
how are you feeling after 18.1?
I'm getting there. My shoulder is nearly. Obviously, on the last podcast we recorded it on Sunday, my shoulder was in the right state.
Yeah.
It's getting better.
Good.
I can actually move through the full range of movement. It's not the most comfortable thing, but I've been doing a load of rehab work on it, and hopefully we should be ready for 18.2. So yeah, it was good. It was nice. Yeah, it was good. So this week we're going to start off with talking about the basics, specifically nutrition and training. This is as if you are brand new to the gym, so you've never been to the gym before. Maybe you have and it's been a few years, or even just sort of thinking about nutrition for the first time. We're going to speak about nutrition and training, but starting off specifically with nutrition. Harry, What are we saying?
So for people who are kind of just new to it, coming around to the idea for the first time, I think the first priority is awareness.
Cool.
Actually being aware of what you're consuming, even when you're consuming it, how you feel around those times, getting context behind the food that you're eating and understanding what you're ingesting is of the highest priority. So some form of tracking. A lot of people use MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal gets a lot of grief really because of the preset targets, but as just a calorie counter or a tracker, it shows the times of your eating. And I think that's a good place to start, or just keeping a log, writing it down, looking over your food receipt.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know about what your process is, but when I start off with a client, that's the first thing that we do when we start to look at their food is where they're at already, what are they eating, how often are they eating, what are the quantities of those portions, and then we try and make sort of small changes if we need to optimize that, I suppose. And also, I think with all this, it's not about making huge changes necessarily. It's about making your diet work for you. So
absolutely, yeah.
People talk a lot about loads of different sort of dieting trends, and it's not necessarily that any of them are going to be wrong. It's just whether they're right for you and your lifestyle. So if you're a person that, for example, skips breakfast just struggles to eat in the morning, sort of intermittent fasting protocol might be the one for you. Might not be the one for me, because actually speaking for myself personally, I like to sort of eat regularly throughout the day. I enjoy my food and I like it to be a sort of a big part of my life.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's enjoyable. Like, food is enjoyable. And when people first start up in the gym, they feel like they almost have to torture themselves. Like, you need to leave every workout in pain. You need to wake up the next day not getting down the stairs. You need to feel hungry all the time so that you know that you're losing weight, and that's just not the case. It's just a common misconception. I think keeping food in its proper place and keeping a good relationship with it, and optimizing it to fuel yourself, as you said, those little tweaks rather than punishing yourself through food, definitely is my advice. And as you said, with a client, tracking is really important to start straight away so that you get some context around how they eat. Absolutely.
Now, a little caveat to that is you sort of have to have a understanding of that client's background. Obviously, there are eating disorders out there that tracking your foods would be used as a form of enabling those, and we just need to be really careful and responsible as practitioners, I think, to make sure that particular person tracking is the right thing to do, because so I would say if we can't track through an app like MyFitnessPal where you're looking specifically at calories, then maybe another alternative is to get that client to take pictures of their food. So you can have a look at what those portion sizes are looking like and what the sort of makeup of their food is.
Yeah, I've even had before where I'll get people to take a photo of each meal and then just create a collage at the end of the day that they send over. And especially more visual kind of creative types, that's sometimes just a preferred method. And you're getting an indication of what they're eating, as you say, the portion sizes, when, etc.
Yeah, man. I mean, so for me, nutrition, if you're looking at your health as a pyramid, and obviously the top is sort of the stuff that matters the least, because obviously we need strong foundations, I would put nutrition at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want that strong foundational base of a decent nutritional protocol, and that's going to inform everything else. It's going to inform your energy levels, it's going to inform your mood, it's going to inform your body composition. So I would start my pyramid off there.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the pyramid, actually, because one of the guys who I really respect, I love his content, Andy Morgan. I believe he's actually from Birmingham originally,
cool.
Which is interesting. He writes, he's got a website, it's ripbody.com, and he writes a lot of blog articles on there.
Yeah.
He's based over in Japan now. He does a pyramid of nutritional priorities, which I wrote a blog article myself on, which is up on my website. And at the bottom of that is calories and macros. They're kind of your more important things towards the bottom, and then towards the top is things like supplementation and meal timings. So a lot of the time people will start the gym and they'll be like, oh, I need some BCAAs because that's what you need to get ripped. And they're under eating massively on calories, or they're over consuming on calories massively. So definitely addressing like the more important things and then working your way up through that pyramid is a good place to start.
Yeah, so then to talk about what food we're actually eating, for me, when someone is, so we've gone through that process of tracking and seeing where we're at, or maybe they're not even a client and they've just asked me for some general advice whilst I'm out on the gym floor, I always go back to this. You're going to eat real food, not too much, mostly veg, okay? And another sort of general rule, if it hasn't flown, grown, swam or walked, it's probably not the one. One resource that I would really recommend to follow on from that if you're interested is there's a Netflix documentary called In Defense of Food, and I think the ideas within that documentary are all sort of really well founded, and to me they make a lot of sense anyway. That's where I would start.
You know, that can be the difficulty. I think there's so many different ideas on nutrition, and
there's
so
a lot
many
of noise,
people, producing content, and you know, a lot of these things are money driven, especially in the world of supplementation and stuff. And it is going back to those basics. Like I like that if it's grown, swam, walked. What was it?
If it hasn't flown, grown, swam or walked, don't.
I like that. And the other one I know is if your great nan or your great grandmother would recognise it, then it's probably okay. Because you know, food can literally be manufactured and created in a lab now. And going back to natural foods and the food that has the enzymes in it to break down. Another one I've heard Phil Loney use a lot is if a food can actually rot. If its shelf life is short, it's generally okay because it's got the enzymes in it already that's needed to break that food down.
So, you know, I think it's really important as well to recognise our positions in terms of where we're at with our own nutritional protocols in this. It's not like we're preaching from a point of optimal nutrition ourselves. You know, it's always a learning process. It's always sort of going to be a process of finding out what works for you and sort of experimenting with that. You know, you probably won't ever get it perfect, but if you can get it right for, you know, there's the 80-20 rule, isn't it? If you can get it right 80% of the time, then the 20% of you that you're not getting it right, you can probably like chill on a little bit and give yourself a break.
You know, it can become obsessive, and people get so concerned with having a fully optimized diet. But generally, if you're just hitting all the basics, you're eating fairly clean, fairly regularly in moderation, and you're being aware, then you won't go far wrong. It's when I feel the problem comes when you're not paying any attention to what you eat and you just mindlessly go about eating on the go, not realising what you're consuming, you know, starving yourself for hours and then binge eating. And it's there's a lot of different ways that you can make errors in nutrition, but generally just being consistent across the board I think is a good starting point.
100%. So sort of for the lifestyle of a personal trainer, I just feel like meal prep is king, because for me, I'm always on the go. I'm always, you know, I'll be, obviously I think I mentioned in the first episode, I work between here and here being Pure Gym Bridie Hill and CrossFit Rudis and Tipton, and eating can be hard on the go to eat well, to get to get the right nutrients in, and to also even just like tracking it, because you might end up being short because you haven't prepared effectively. And I think practicing that, it is a practice. It's not like something that you do one Sunday and you batch cook your meals for the week and it's like, oh, cool, perfect.
And you'll do that forever. It never happens.
Life just isn't that black and white, and I think that's really important to bear in mind.
Yeah, especially even not, that applies to everybody as well. As you say, you might not prepare properly for something, or you might have to grab a convenient meal for whatever reason, and that's okay. And people, I think, especially when they're starting out, they're so driven towards their goal that they'll beat themselves up unnecessarily for making a mistake in their diet, or so
it's funny, that you use that word mistake. I think the language that we use,
I second guess that one.
I think the language that we use about our food is really important, because I think it then dictates whether that relationship to food is healthy or not. Absolutely. If we're using things like cheat meal or sins, like they do in some of this sort of Slimming World,
it's a negative connotation.
Yeah, there's just negative connotations, man. Like like you have to eat to live. Like that's just fact. And I mean, I know some people that aren't really that bothered about food and just can literally just view it as an energy source. But for me, I love the taste of food. I love socializing over food, and I want to enjoy what I'm eating. I don't want to think of it as a sin, even when I'm having the less optimal meals. Like, why would I want to feel bad about something that I have to do to live? Like, maybe that is a black and white way of looking at it, but at the same time, I think it's really important to enjoy your food. So when I'm working with a client, we're not just giving out plans for rice, broccoli, and plain chicken. There are plenty of ways of making the food that you eat not only nutritious and optimal, but taste amazing.
Yeah, and it's got to be to their taste as well. It's got to be to your own taste.
I love spicy food, but I think I'm in the minority.
Yeah, well, you might not like broccoli, rice, and chicken, and then if that's what you're being prescribed, that's you're just not going to enjoy it. It's going to be a miserable day for you, isn't it?
It is.
So it's such a huge topic, but I feel like those are the basics: awareness, consistency, moderation, and just looking into some of the content that's out there from some trustworthy sources like Andy Morgan, and not being bought into all of the marketing and hype around.
Man, 10 minutes in and we've already lost you first then. It's great. Is that everything you want to say about nutrition?
I think there's never enough to say about nutrition.
But I think if we go any further, we may end up overcomplicating it a little bit. So we'll leave it there.
To move on today. Yeah.
Nutrition is obviously going to be a topic that we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
So let's move on to training then, because obviously we work in a gym. So to be fair, the majority of our questions that we're asked on a day-to-day basis are going to be more based around that, like training principles or what people's goals are. So what have you got?
So I guess for somebody who, obviously this is aimed at people who are very new to the gym, perhaps even a first time attender, the key is attendance. Like, you're not the gym can really help facilitate goals. Like, it's a nice place to come in and focus, and you've got access to all equipment that you wouldn't have access to beyond that environment. So getting yourself in frequently, I'd say 2, 3, max 4 times a week to start. I think the problem that I see most is people who are starting out, they're so keen to get into the gym. They spend 7 days a week, 6 days a week, and you say, how often would you like to come in? And they go, every single day. And that lasts for a couple of weeks, and then it's unsustainable, or you'll miss a session and then you'll feel guilty and it might demotivate you.
It is the entire reason that we didn't go overboard on nutrition, just because you can overwhelm yourself by thinking that you're doing really well by coming in 7 days a week for 2 or 3 weeks, and then wait a second, I actually haven't found out what I like to do here and what I'm enjoying. So or maybe you see some very good short-term results. Maybe you lose half a stone, or in the first 3 or 4 weeks, and you're like, okay, sweet, chilling, I can sort of slow it down a bit now. Maybe, but that's not necessarily the point in why you came. So for me, I think two things really. So I think first of all, working within that system that you just sort of established is to find out what you enjoy. What do you like to do in the gym? You know, here at our gym, we've got so many pieces of equipment, and yeah, fair enough, you're not going to know how to use them. That's sort of fact. Like with anything in life, when you first start off, you never know what you're doing, first of all. But there's plenty of people here that are going to help you. Exactly, and even if not, like there's plenty of things, there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube, there's plenty of sort of placards around the place that tell you how to use things. So I would really prioritize in finding out what you enjoy. Maybe you're one of those people that love to go on a treadmill for an hour. If that's getting you in to start with, if that's what's keeping your attendance high, then cool, because we can work on developing that further once you've got that adherence. And I think you start on the CV equipment, you start on the resistance machine, so you can understand what it feels for a particular muscle to contract, and then you maybe like advance to free weights and try some classes. Maybe you try a spin class, because you're directly in control of the resistance on the bike. Like there's so many different things that you can do, and I think it's just important to experiment as much as possible and find out what you love. And that's going to change over time as well. Like you might start off being that person that spends an hour on a treadmill each time, and then within 3 months you're squatting in the free weights area and going to legs, bums and tongues classes twice a week.
It's exactly that, like sampling a variety. There's so many different things you can do in the gym, and finding what you like is a good way to adhere to attending. And once that becomes a consistent thing, then you've built a habit around coming to the gym. It does become a routine, doesn't it? I'm sure you found that starting out. Yeah,
and I think as well, like, don't be afraid to try anything and everything, even if you are unsure that you're doing it correctly. If you're unsure that you're doing it correctly, don't go heavy. Just start off super light. And if people laugh at you, you know what? Fuck them in the nicest possible way. Like, that's their problem, not yours. You're in here to make a difference to your life. And I think, for example, in our gym, we've got a rig that's devoted to these cables called TRX. And on the surface, they look like they're really advanced, and you look at them and you're like, oh man, I don't know even where to start with that. But like with everything in the gym, it's all scalable. Like there is a way to make that super easy or super hard.
Yeah, and like you say, I think a big problem for people is worrying what other people will think, or worrying how they'll look doing a certain thing. But what you've got to remember is everybody else in here is in the same boat, or has been in the same boat at some point. And it's just getting that start and making things as easy as possible for you to just give it a go and find what you enjoy and then build from there.
Yeah, man. And I think the next thing then, once you've found that routine over that first month, those first 6 weeks, is to work out why you're here. What are you doing here? Like, are you here because you're injured from your normal sport? Maybe you're a runner and you need to be able to maintain sort of the strength of your legs, or the muscular endurance in your legs, but you can't you can't run outside. Maybe you've got a wedding coming up and you want to lose X amount of weight by the time that comes around, or maybe you're just here for general fitness, which is something that we get all the time. So you're just trying to put off the nursing home in essence, and that is going to inform what you then do within these four walls.
I think having a clear plan and something to work towards, it can be a difficult thing to come up with, but generally you find a lot of people just know why they want to be there. They're, I want to look better in this dress, or I want to look better for my holiday, I want to get my shirt off on the beach. It could be something really simple, but that will inform how you train, and it will give you purpose whilst you're in here.
Again, I think it's like something that maybe I would catch some flack for saying, but it's like, if you want to look like Captain America or Wonder Woman, like, go out there and research what those guys did to get into that shape. And there's going to be someone out there that's done a YouTube tutorial or put up a plan, and it might not be the way that they did it, because obviously they were working one-on-one for the most part with a trainer and with a nutrition coach, and that's fine. But if that's what you want, and it's going to give you some inspiration, and maybe you're not in a position where you can afford a personal trainer, or maybe you're not in a position, maybe you don't like working out with other people, maybe you actually just like to come in, put your headphones on, do your own thing. There's plenty of resources out there that are ultimately going to get you where you need to get to.
I think that correlates really well to what we were saying about nutrition. It's about finding out why or what is involved with eating correctly. It's the same in the gym. You need to find out what it requires to get what you want. And there's a lot of misconceptions. I think a lot of people have an idea about a certain, I always get the question, what is the best exercise for abs, or like how many sit-ups do I need to do to get abs? And it's not that straightforward. Abs are made in the kitchen. You need to actually reduce the body fat on top of that surface to see those abs. And there's ways of strengthening your core and training that muscle to be perhaps more prominent or stronger. But there's a lot of misconception around what's needed to be done.
So the other day I was starting off a session with a client, and there was someone on. We have an ab crunch machine, which personally I don't rate at all, but. This guy was on it, and he sort of called me over and he said, do you mind if I borrow you for a second? I just wanted to know, and he gestured to sort of his stomach, and he said, I want to know how to develop my abs more, or how I'm going to get rid of this fat. What exercise can I do to get rid of this fat? And I was like, well, the exercise that you can do is work on your nutrition. Because like no amount of ab crunches and no amount of sit-ups are gonna change your body composition enough if you're still eating rubbish. So the thing is, it's not the problem. Nutrition and training have to go so hand in hand, and that is why nutrition is the base of the pyramid before you're training. So if you want to lose weight and you're still eating rubbish, let's sort that out first. So like I had I went out actually, and I was in a social environment, and someone said to me, I've joined a gym, like what do I need to do to drop my body fat? And I was like, what's your diet like? And she was like, well, I drink like a lot, and the food that I eat isn't great, but obviously I'm training more now, so what's going to work? And I was like, well, nothing until you sort out your nutrition. There is like a little bit of sort of balance to be had, but the thing is, most people don't work hard enough to outwork a bad diet. Anyway, like unless you're I don't know, and even then, like if you are out training a bad diet, you're still not fueling your body with the right fuel that's going to optimize your results. So you might be able to do it for a little bit, but ultimately I think your results will probably plateau, and you'll reach a point where, because you're not fueling your body with nutritionally sort of dense foods, there's going to be a point where your progress stops.
I think a lot of people, I don't want to get too into the details of it, but especially if you're currently overweight, you've built up a level of what they call insulin resistance as well. So your body is craving like high carb foods, high sugar foods. And you see a trainer who's probably never been over 10% body fat, and they throw up their cheat meals, which are really high in carbs and fat, and they're like, well, he's got a six-pack, but why can't I eat like that?
The easy example is The Rock, isn't it? I mean, his Instagram is full of pancakes and him clanging and banging in the Iron Paradise.
It's so true, but he's in a position where his body can handle those stresses and deal with that in the food he's putting in effectively.
The guy works hard enough. Like he does work at the right intensity to be able to occasionally, and it is occasionally if you believe what you read, and to occasionally have those meals that are not optimal in the slightest, but probably taste great. And I think if you need to basically think, so going back to this whole definition of why you come into the gym and stuff, if your goal is to change your body composition effectively, then that's only going to come with a certain level of intensity. And I'm not necessarily on about high impact stuff either. Like you can do it with low impact, but if you're attacking it with the right intensity, then you'll get the results.
And that's just to elaborate on that. It's intensity over a period of time. One of my favourite sayings, which applies to both nutrition and to training, is long-term consistency beats short-term intensity. And you can do these things. You can have an optimal diet. You can train optimally for a very short period of time, unless you make a living from it. But if you're a beginner, you're not used to any of those things, you will most likely fail. So it's best to take a consistent approach and choose something that you can maintain.
So, and I think, so this is something Greg Glassman said, be impressed with intensity, not volume. So I think, I don't know if we talked about this in the first episode or not, but you get people that are here for like a couple of hours or 3 hours doing a session, and they're focusing on like the shoulders or the arms. So if we just take the arms, like your biceps and your triceps are tiny muscles compared to, for example, your legs, or the muscles in your legs and the muscles in your back. And you're like, how are you spending this much time here? Like, because I feel like you could have just as an effective workout on, if you just wanted to focus on the arms, you could be in and out of the gym in 20 minutes. In fact, you didn't even have to leave your house.
Yeah. No, I agree, and that's a little bit my issue with the bro split, but I'm sure we'll come on to that at a different time.
We will.
We won't get into that now.
That episode will be entitled Harry Rants.
Harry rants about the bro split. But it's just to kind of summarise that point, which I think is really, really good. It comes back to my original point of don't go overboard.
Yeah.
And that not just on frequency of attending the gym, but also how long you're in here, how hard you're training. Just do enough to hit those muscles, stimulate them, and then take yourself home and go and have a hot bath and get a dinner and go to bed. And I think if that kind of long-term approach, as long as you are bringing that intensity to that short workout, is definitely the starting point.
So I think we will revisit the basics at another point, but we'll probably focus a little bit more on sleep and stress because they are going to take a part in your training. Is there anything more you want to add before we wrap up today, Harry?
No, I think that, without overcomplicating it, that's, we've touched on some fundamental principles that you can apply to both nutrition and training.
Absolutely.
It's a good start point.
Cool. So obviously, guys, we're still working this podcast thing out. We're still getting to grips with how we record, when we record, the frequency that these episodes are going to come out in, and
how it feels to actually do it.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
a new thing, isn't it?
So, like, if you've got any feedback for us, or if you would like us to answer like a specific question, then feel free to send us a message. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, either at Rise Fitness UK, or you can just add me as a friend, Alex Parkinson. And Harry, you're at...
Same for me. I'm at HMPT Coaching, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. HMPT Coaching,
I think we'd like you guys to get more involved as well in what the content is, because ultimately this is what we're doing it for.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe in future episodes we'll have guests on and stuff, but the next episode after this one, guys, is going to be my review of 18.2. So going back to the CrossFit workout. These episodes are always going to be tackling like a variety of different subjects, and if you're not that interested in CrossFit or my experience of CrossFit, for example, that's cool. I'm not going to get offended by it. Don't feel like you have to, listen to what's relevant for you. Me and Harry will sort out when we're next going to record. It might not be for a couple of weeks. We'll see how it goes. But I think that'll do it for today.
There we go.
Thanks a lot,
have a
team.
great week. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.